have the Ayatollah of fantasy rock and roller with us today, Adam Rank. How you doing, Rank?
They look great in person, and I just can't wait to next year where we can pack it full of 25,000.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. I didn't know it was Ball Guys Day. It was being ranked. I mean, how can you lose?
This is the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast.
Oh, hello there, and welcome to the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast, episode 154, presented by the Fantasy Points Media Group there. You like that? I think so, and you are going to like the show that we have going on today. I'm not wearing my ice here or anything like that, but I got the two best fantasy analysts in the game today joining me, Major Caldwell, Tera Roberts. How you all doing tonight?
Go ahead, Tara.
I'm doing fantastic. Yeah, I do like that. Let's ride. I love all the, the slogans that we have in the NFL now. I appreciate them all.
Yeah.
Well, I was this close to going shirtless, but Adam Schefter beat me to it here on Monday Night Football. I didn't have the bling. I didn't have the ice to put on because, well, quite frankly, no one wants to see me without my shirt on to begin with. But, hey, I would have done it for a good laugh here because I have absolutely no shame. Now, Major, tell me what's going on there. You're fresh. You've missed the last couple weeks there. A little bit of sickness, a little bit of traveling.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been all over the world there. What's been going on?
I am tired. People who travel for a living, salute to you guys because this thing is not fun. So, and I do appreciate you, keeping your shirt on because I know you're like tempted. Like, you're just like right in your wheelhouse that you just wanted to take your shirt off. I'm glad you used better judgment and you did not. I did not want to throw up on my first show back. Thank you very much, Matt.
Well, you know what? There's a lot of people having that same feeling here. So I've got this rule where I don't wear pants until it gets like below zero, like below freezing here up in Canada. And we've got a little bit of snow, a little bit of blizzard. And I kind of made it through the first couple of days up here. And then I had to give in today when I went into work. So I had to finally wear pants to work. So it's been rough. It's been a rough couple of days for me as well. But what's not rough here is looking back at this week that was. Actually, maybe it was rough because we had a lot of teams that were on bye here in week number 9. A lot of challenges for those fantasy rosters. And now we're moving ahead to week 10. And when we look at the schedule ahead of us here, we see there's some pretty good games coming up here. We've got everything starting off with Atlanta and Carolina. We're going to talk about that as part of our Thursday Night Football preview that we talk about each and every week. We're going to give you our starts and sits like we give you each and every week. And then we're going to talk about some of these games and kind of what they mean and how it's all going to break down. We've got Seattle versus Tampa Bay and Munich, Germany as part of that international series. We've got Minnesota and Buffalo, which could be an interesting game considering some of the news and know it's coming out of Buffalo here earlier on this week. Detroit at Chicago. This could be one of those low-key, scary kind of games where the offense absolutely takes over this week. Jacksonville at Kansas City. We've got Cleveland at Miami. We've got Houston at the New York Giants there. Hey, Major, I'm just glad that you've missed the last couple of weeks because you didn't go to Cabo there and bust your hand, okay? So kudos to you for not breaking your hand while you were away from the show. We have the New Orleans Saints at the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Denver Broncos at the Tennessee Titans, Indianapolis Colts at the Las Vegas Raiders. I mean, there's no way, is there? There's no way in hell that the Vegas Raiders can lose a fourth game when they lead by 17 to a team that doesn't even have a head coach. I mean, there's no one on this Indianapolis Colts team, more on this a little bit later, that has even called an offensive play in the NFL. We've also got the Dallas Cowboys and the Green Bay Packers. We've got the Arizona Cardinals at the Los Angeles Rams, the Los Angeles Chargers taking on the San Francisco 49ers. And on Monday Night Football, we have the Washington Commanders taking on the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles. That means on bye week this week, we have the Baltimore Ravens coming off a victory over the New Orleans Saints there on Monday Night Football. We've got the Cincinnati Bengals, the New England Patriots, and the New York Jets, who are 6-3 and right in the thick of things in the AFC East there. What is up is now down. What is down is now up. We do not know what's going on, or do we? We're going to talk about that here in just a second. Let's talk about these news and notes and how it may affect your fantasy rosters here. And Tara, I'm going to turn to you for this first one because not all is well in Packerland there, as the injuries are adding up even at a higher clip than what is normal. Aaron Jones, we're hoping it's just a low ankle injury. X-rays were negative. Romeo Doubs did not avoid that. It looks like a high ankle, 4 to 6 weeks there. Aaron Rodgers, he's got his feelings hurt once again. Now, kind of break this all down, what is going on in Green Bay and what that means possibly moving forward through weeks 10, 11, and 12.
Oh, man. We'll start off with Aaron Jones, the ankle sprain. I mean, it's better than what it originally sounded like. You do have to worry, since this team is obviously not competitive, if they get a little conservative with Aaron Jones and maybe hold him out a little bit longer and kind of make sure that everything is okay with him. Although, can they really afford to? Do they really want to go that direction of saying we are absolutely done with the season? That's a tough one. So, be prepared for Aaron Jones to sit out this week. Roll in with A.J. Dillon. Do I have a whole lot of confidence in A.J. Dillon? Given the state of the offense, not really. He's more of an RB2. He's not that smash RB1 that you would think that he would immediately step into with Aaron Jones going down. Romeo Doubs, unfortunately, it's crazy how this, Packers wide receiver core just can't manage to stay healthy. Alan Lazard to the moon. If he was already, remotely kind of on his way to the moon, I think he gets there even more now. He's looked fantastic. And then Aaron Rodgers, the feelings, honestly, a lot of that is on him, though, unfortunately. I see him getting very frustrated in the games, irritated over the interceptions, but it's not a whole lot of confusion on the wide receivers part. Aaron Rodgers is making a lot of mistakes himself. He doesn't look very good. You can't trust him from a fantasy perspective right now. It's just a whole giant mess, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about this a little bit later on my Friday Night Hype show there over at fantasypoints.com. By the way, check out fantasypoints.com today. Use promo code 22Vipers10. That's going to get you 10% off that subscription. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this game because it's almost like Aaron Rodgers is going through the 7 stages of grief right now. I mean, he really is. We've seen this whole play out throughout the whole season here right now. And, we got to get to that anger, depression kind of stage where he's blaming everyone else. Players who are not doing their job shouldn't be getting reps, and players maybe shouldn't get reps that aren't getting reps, et cetera, et cetera. Then this week, he's like in his press conference, after he's already torn through his entire teammates and the rest of that roster, he's like, you know what? This one's probably on me. Really? I mean, that sounds like he's come to the acceptance part of the 7 stages of grief. He's kind of like, you know what? This may have been a mistake coming back. I mean, he's kind of saying the right things right now, but clearly it probably was not in his best interest to come back this season, considering what we've seen on the field and how that's materialized so far. Now, speaking of what things have materialized on the field, we had a little bit of a turnover there in Indianapolis there. We know they're a mess there. Frank Reich, he's out, and in comes Jeff Saturday, a former offensive lineman. So the one thing that we know is this offensive line has absolutely struggled all season long. Matt Ryan, he was hit more sacked more than any other quarterback prior to him losing his job to Sam Ehlinger, who was a little bit more of a mobile quarterback. That hasn't panned out for the Colts either so far as getting this offense kick-started. So maybe Saturday, maybe he's the remedy for this offensive line. Maybe we could see Jonathan Stewart return to his former glory because – let's be honest, Jonathan Stewart's been a bit of a bust so far this season. Nyheim Hines, he's gone. And now we're left with, Deion Jackson, Zach Moss. Major, can the addition of Jeff Saturday get this offense going? Or more importantly, can they get this offensive line kick-started in the right direction?
I say yes to all of that. I like Jeff Saturday. I like offensive linemen. Every offensive lineman I ever played with are always the smartest people on the team. They kind of know the offense in and out because it kind of starts with them. But, they're really big on technique. They're really detailed, hand placement and all that stuff. So I think you're going to see a lot of that translate into his coaching style, where he's going to be very detail-oriented in that. But I really like Frank. I love any coach who looks like he's on the verge of crying every time he's going to talk or give a speech. And I want to see where he lands. I'm more excited for him. I think he's going to have opportunity to be an offensive coordinator somewhere and help a team out. But I think Saturday can make something happen. And if they have a lot of injuries, so if the injuries can kind of go away a little bit, I think they can get back on track.
So you have no concern over Jeff Saturday's like 3-6 high school coaching record?
High school? We talking high school?
We're talking high school because that's the only coaching experience he's bringing to the table here. And apparently Jim Irsay, he likes that because that means he's not afraid of the NFL yet as far as analytics are concerned. I mean, if you haven't heard the Jim Irsay Monday Night Football press conference, I mean, it really is a thing of beauty to listen to. I mean, it is a colossal roller coaster, train wreck, whatever you want to call it, but it's glorious. Everything that's being said, you can't imagine this coming out of anyone's mouth except Jim Irsay. So, I mean, I don't know where I'm at with this Jeff Saturday, but the way things are going in the office, something had to change.
Yeah, sometimes ignorance is bliss. Like sometimes having no experience sometimes actually helps, especially when you're coming in mid-season and taking over a team. Sometimes you got to be like, F it, and just like, we're going to throw the ball 100 times. We're going to do whatever we want to do because we're playing with house money right now. So I think he has an opportunity to kind of like, it's not so much pressure on him to like get the team turned around. I think he's going to go out there and have fun and see what happens.
Well, I think if the Colts are smart, the part of their game plan would involve them getting down by 17 points to the Raiders, because even if Jeff Saturday can't coach, if the Raiders get a 17-point lead, McDaniels is going to give that game away. It's going to happen. That's just what the Raiders have been able to do.
Best time for you to have your first coaching start is against a team who's like, before the season, I actually had them going to the playoffs. I love the Raiders roster. I don't know what happened. What happened, man?
Well, we see this all happen. We ask Denver Broncos fans; they can tell you exactly what happened here.
Yeah.
Raiders fans early on, we're picking it all up now. Tara, maybe the biggest news as far as fantasy is concerned right now is the Josh Allen elbow injury. We don't know if it's going to cost him any games. We're going to find out probably a little bit more on Tuesday morning. So if you're listening to the show, make sure you're checking out all those media outlets, because we should have a little bit more clarity on that injury. It's sounding like a UCL there. A part of the nerve is kind of being affected by everything. Again, we're not doctors here, although I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express once, so that does give me a little bit of leeway to say kind of medical terms and stuff. But with that being said, it really didn't seem to affect him throwing that ball. I mean, right after he injured his elbow, he chucked it up like 70 yards. Unfortunately, I think it was Gabe Davis and his 54.5% catch rate just couldn't pull it down at that point. So, Tara, how are you feeling about Josh Allen? And do you think he could miss some time with his elbow injury, and what that does for Stephon Diggs, Gabriel Davis, even Devin Singletary to a lesser degree?
I mean, it's possible. I think he was maybe a little bit affected by it. You could see him kind of messing with it throughout after it happened, and maybe at the very least you end up with a Justin Herbert kind of situation where it's not a time miss issue as much as it is like you can visibly see that it affects him in a few games moving forward. And that's a big concern because, the Bills have competition now. So unfortunately, it's not so much of a cakewalk that you would typically see in that division. They're very competitive. They have competition. So this is something that's going to be a major concern if it makes him a little bit vulnerable, and they possibly maybe lose a game or so that they didn't expect, and we get into a situation where playoff seeding is affected. Obviously, I don't see any way that this affects them in the long run and their ability to make the playoffs, but seeding is going to be very important in such a competitive conference and competitive division. So this is going to be very interesting to watch. By the way, guys, I am not on the Jeff Saturday train. Just to clarify on that. That one is one of the most.
Oh, really? Go opposite of me. Oh, that's new.
It's one of the most ridiculous. I wish him nothing but the best of luck, but that's one of the most ridiculous things, and obviously blatant taking. And I just don't understand where Irsay is coming from. They don't even have somebody that can play or call plays right now. This is just wild. I have a lot of Michael Pittman. This is, this is not right. This is not fair. Sorry.
We do know Irsay has a history. That's a little bit of that going on,
Yeah.
Well, it also sounds like Tara's also going through the 7 stages of grief here over this Frank Reich firing here. Now, I do need to get to a couple things. I mean, the Bills, they can't lose any more of these games. They can't lose any ground here on the Jets, on the Dolphins. I mean, this AFC East is a lot more competitive than we thought it was going to be. I think I think the Jets have arrived probably a season earlier than most people were expecting, based on that strength of that defense coming a lot quicker. Definitely not the offense. I don't think the offense is quite there, especially with Breece Hall no longer being in that fold. But Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, I mean, these guys are getting after it in the secondary for the Jets, so it's good to see. Now, let's talk about the quarterback position.
Let me get a little bit of the Browns, because I think Case Keenum could fill in and actually maybe not perform better, but I think the passing game might be moving a little bit more. I think he may be a more accurate. I don't know. To me, it seems like I don't know. Josh Allen to me is a running quarterback. He's more of a running back for the most part. He'll give you that 40, 50-yard bomb, and then everyone's like, oh, he's the greatest passer. But I'm not a biggest fan of his. I think he's a bit overrated, but I think the Bills are in a lot of trouble because, these facilities have a top-notch medical staff and equipment there on site. And when they're looking for second opinions, that means it could be bad. So just brace yourself if you're a Bills fan.
Yeah, I know those running quarterbacks that have the fourth most passing yards in the league. They're anyway. Now let's talk about two complex different quarterbacks here, though. Let's talk about two quarterbacks that bring very different styles here, and talk about how it pertains to Dynasty here. This is one of the questions that came in the mailbag this week. Tua Tagovailoa or Justin Fields for Dynasty? Major, I'll start with you first here. Would you rather Tua or would you rather Justin Fields for Dynasty?
This is a fantastic question. Oh man, because Justin Fields look like I see something there. I think Tua is kind of like at his ceiling already, but I think Justin Fields is just like he's not even at the he's not even where he's at the bottom right now, and he still look like he has a ton of potential there. If they can get some help for him, and if they're not cheap and go out of free agency and grab some people and draft well, I'm on the Justin Fields train. I'm gonna go Justin Fields just because I think his upside is way greater than Tua's.
What about you, Tara? What side of that quarterback conundrum are you on?
It's close, but I'm on the Tua side. Again, we've got a lot to figure out in terms of the weapons and the level of, we've seen a little tiny increase in pass volume, and maybe it, continues as time goes on, but we have a little bit to kind of figure out there with Justin Fields. He's being very efficient with it, but we need to see a little bit more. Tua, I feel more comfortable with. We've got locked in weapons right there. We know exactly what we're getting. The situation is very stable. And for the most part, he has looked like someone who is performing at the level that we expected when he was drafted, as to be that guy, that first overall pick. So yeah, I lean towards
his
the
injuries
side.
What do you say about like his injury history added into that?
I don't want to, and I hate to jump on the whole I hate to address this because I don't want to jump on the whole running quarterbacks and injuries happen and whatnot. But it can happen to anybody. It can happen to Justin Fields, just as it happened to Tua. So I'm not gonna put the injury history on him and knock him on that.
Okay, that makes sense. Good answer.
And I think a lot of people that when you did your scouting reports with Tua Tagovailoa coming out of the University of Alabama, we already knew he was going to lose 2 to 3 seasons on the back end of his career based on that hip injury. It was going to cost him 2-3 years at the backside of his career. What that backside looks like, I don't know. Quarterbacks are playing until they're 45 now. So what's he retire at 42? For Dynasty, if you're getting a quarterback for 10 years, you got to be feeling pretty good about that investment there, especially when they're doing things that even Dan Marino wasn't doing in Miami. So for me, I'm going to lean on the Tua side just a little bit here until I see a little bit more from Justin Fields. It looks like Miami's been doing a much better job of surrounding him. Like Tara was saying, you got Tyreek Hill. He's already there for a while. You got Jalen Waddle. Look what these guys are doing at the wide receiver position. Then Miami goes, you know what? Well, we'll give San Francisco Trey Lance, but we're going to use those 3 first-round picks on Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and now Bradley Chubb. So they're getting a good return on their investment on those first-round picks. So they're actually supporting them not only on offense, but on defense around. I think the Bears are going to be a couple years away from that, which puts Justin Fields a little bit further behind on that development. When you look at Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle versus Darnell Mooney and Chase Claypool, I think there's a considerable difference in those weapons. Now, we know that Konami Code's ability to run the ball is a huge difference maker, but it's also potentially a detriment to your fantasy potential too, because that's when you risk getting hit a little bit more often there. So it's kind of that double-edged sword. I do like Tua a little bit more because Tyreek Hill, he wasn't lying. Look at this. He said that Tua is more accurate than Patrick Mahomes, and you put up the accuracy numbers, and not just the dink and dunk stuff that everyone always kind of jokes about Tua.
Yeah. Tua
beyond the sticks is one of the most accurate passers in the National Football League, which still people do not want to admit. They kind of want to Tua is just a dink and dunk passer. He can't throw it. All we want to see is him throw these underthrown balls and talk about him. Meanwhile, he's got one of the best completion rates 20, 30 yards down the field of any quarterback in the league. So I think we do need to get – I mean, Tua gets nothing but love on this show, right? Yeah. And Major, you basically said this was a tough call for you altogether. But I need to know another tough call.
Before you go too far, I'm sorry to mess your transition because you was killing it. I was going to say it tells a lot about our GM styles, like with this question, because I'm drafting potential. I'm going in free agency and grab potential. I'm always a year or two early on people. And then you got more, conservative people who like, I want the people who's giving me numbers now, Tara. But that's a good difference. I mean, this is a really good question. I like this one. We should pose that to
Justin Fields. Justin Fields is giving you numbers now. He's like number 2 quarterback overall last 2 weeks. QB6 in points per game over the last little while. So you're getting your production from Justin Fields right now. It's just not by throwing the ball for the most part. Now, throwing the ball is important, and catching the ball is probably even more important for a lot of these teams, especially as they make their playoff push for your fantasy rosters. And one of those names that should be firmly on your waiver wire that you should be targeting if he's still available is Odell Beckham Jr. I guess the biggest question is, where does OBJ go? Tara, what's your prediction for Odell Beckham Jr.?
He either goes to Dallas or he goes back to New York. I think it would kind of be poetic to go back to New York under, and Brian Daboll. Obviously, that would be a fantastic coaching situation for him. So it'll be that, or Jerry Jones is going to get him because it's Jerry Jones. And, Odell wants to play somewhere big. He wants to play somewhere with lights. And obviously, New York or Dallas, those are 2 very good options.
What were you, Major? Where do you think Odell goes?
My heart, I want to see him go to Baltimore. Lamar needs a receiver. Like, can we give him some kind of like a shot? Like, even though Odell, I think he's past his like the man phase, but I think he's still a really good receiver. But we need to get Lamar, because I've seen some incompletions in this game just now that were like some of the best like thrown balls I've ever seen, especially that first one to like Deshaun Jackson on the sideline where like barely missed him. And Lamar was like jumping over people's spin move, running and threw the ball like 50 yards down the field and hit him in the chest. We need someone who can actually make his 50-50 balls. We need somebody who can like start, completing those 50-50 balls. Like Lamar has to be 100% accurate every time he throws a ball. And I think it's kind of unfair. Or, being an LA guy, come on back to the Rams, man.
Well, part of that problem is here when we're looking at any team that's a fit for Odell Beckham Jr., you have to look at who's got the money. I mean, he's going to be a prorated salary, so it shouldn't be too big of a deal. But I mean, I look at the Dallas Cowboys. We know they went after Brandon Cooks here at the trade deadline. We heard about that. We also heard that the Green Bay Packers were quite heavily involved in many wide receivers there that apparently just teams didn't want to trade with Green Bay for whatever reason. So Dallas, they've got a lot of cap room there. They got about $8.5 million still. That's more than enough to entice Odell Beckham Jr. Like you said, America's team there in the spotlight. Doesn't necessarily have to be the number 1 because CeeDee Lamb is there. So he can play that number 2 that gets a lot of attention of a number 1. And you got a quarterback there in Dak Prescott. I think if you talk about Baltimore, he'd have to be the number 1 there, especially with Bateman not available. If you look at some of these other teams, the New York Giants, he'd automatically kind of ascend to that number one role there. I don't think Odell Beckham Jr. is that number one wide receiver anymore. I think he could give you wide receiver one games from time to time, but I don't think he's ready to be the number one receiver as far as drawing that attention, drawing that coverage, and having success with that coverage. So for me, the best fit, in my opinion, probably is the Dallas Cowboys, and I absolutely hate that because it actually disgusts me, to be honest with you. But that all being said,
can we take one quick second and debate the American team thing? Can we do that for 1 second?
no, because we've only got 5 minutes to get through the Thursday Night Football and starts and sits.
Oh, I thought I didn't want to. All right, man, because I think it's the Patriots. But go ahead, let's move on.
No one wants to
America hates the Patriots. Boston loves the Patriots. America hates the Patriots.
Why would we want America's team? Why would we want America's team to be like one of the most like losingest franchises ever? Not ever, but in the past like 20 years. Why not pick a team who's been winning championships every year since like forever? Like let's figure that part out. But hey, let's
here's my theory on America's team. As a Canadian, my thought on America's team, it is whatever team's fan base travels the best. When I think of America's team, I look at all these other stadiums that have the visiting team almost outnumbering the home team. Your Pittsburgh Steelers would fall into that category. Again, as a Raiders fan, I hate the Steelers altogether. I mean, they just tick me off from the immaculate deflection because it was not a reception to whatever else has gone on in their fan base. The Green Bay Packers are another one of those teams that travel well wherever they go. Whether it doesn't matter what stadium you're in, these are the type of teams that are everywhere. I don't see New England Patriots fans coming out in flocks and droves to Las Vegas, but I do see Steelers fans doing it.
Like, I mean, they're elitists. They're like, we're the champions. Why are we traveling anywhere? You guys come see us. Like that's how it works. But Dallas is the most marketed team, most well-marketed team. So that's why you see all that. They played every game as when your father was a fan, that was the only game that was on TV. So that's why it's kind of like that. So it's not because they're a good team, it's because they're good at marketing.
Right, but that's the same in every sport. Like I grew up an Atlanta Braves fan, and Atlanta was America's team because Atlanta was on TV every single weekend, or even more so than that. They were the team that everybody could watch, and no matter where you were. So it makes sense. I mean, you can't let go of that. I mean, I look down at the list of teams. Like, I just don't see who else could be America's team. Like, Dallas just has that. They have, like, the crazy owner, the big, flashy, the massive stadium, dramatics. Like, it's just, yeah. Even their cheerleaders get their own TV show. That was a fantastic TV show, by the way. I used to love that TV show.
All marketing.
So good. So good. That's America's team. Yeah.
That's how you become number one in corporate America, man. It's all about the marketing. You don't see like the San Francisco 49ers marketed in Florida. It just doesn't happen. That's the best argument. I think that's just the clearest,
I'm with you on that
way
one.
to put it. So I know we just talked about kind of disgusting type things there. How am I disgusting with the Cowboys possibly getting Odell Beckham Jr. in there? Let's talk about Thursday Night Football briefly here because we've got PJ Walker. It looks like he's going to be back under center this week there. Mayfield, he came in relief and actually didn't look terrible. He looked un-Baker-esque, I guess the best way to put it, which is really like setting the bar so low that every once in a while you trip over it. And now we're patting Baker Mayfield on the back for doing okay, I guess. And then you've got Marcus Mariota. Right now, if you're in fantasy, Marcus Mariota is like a weird unicorn because he is QB8. And he has failed to throw for more than 150 yards in 5 of the last 6 games. And yet somehow he's at QB8. I mean, Tim Tebow was even throwing for more than 150 yards. We haven't seen a quarterback throw less than 150 yards in 5 or 6 games since like 2018, Josh Rosen. I mean, that's how bad Mariota has been at passing the football. But yet QB8 in fantasy, it doesn't make sense. I mean, I guess it really kind of goes in with everything else that's been happening so far this season, right? I mean, it kind of fits the bill. Right. When you look at how these teams match up, starting with the Atlanta Falcons defense, they're allowing the 5th most or inside the top 5 there fantasy points to quarterbacks this season. They're also allowing top 10 to the running backs, top 3 to wide receivers, and top 7 against tight ends. So if you're Carolina, if you get suboptimal play to average play, as long as it's not terrible, there should be fantasy production in this contest across the board, including your boy there, Tommy Tremble. Now, on the other side of the ball there, as far as Carolina, they're right in the middle of the pack when it comes to allowing points to fantasy quarterbacks this season. I think they're about 18th or something in the league right there. And then they've allowed the top 5 against running backs, which is great for Tyler Algier and Cordell Patterson because they're going to both have a pretty good game there on the ground for the Falcons there, and 10th against the wide receivers. So if Atlanta even had any wide receivers that they actually want to throw the ball to instead of downfield blockers, I mean, this would be a game that they could have potential fantasy points. And they've been average at best against the tight end position. So there is potential for fantasy production to be in this game because these defenses have allowed it. Now, Major, when you look at this game here, what is the one matchup? What is the one thing that you're looking forward to the most in watching this? Like, I mean, we haven't been privileged to some good competition here on Thursday Night Football. Some of these matchups have been downright bad. And you know what? Maybe this is one of those ones that looks bad on paper, but somehow, some way is going to give us something in fantasy worth watching.
You just took the words right out of my mouth. I was like, sometimes you get the two trash teams that end up actually being a really good game. But I'm still a Kyle Pitts fan. I'm still on the bandwagon. I know a lot of people jump board, but a couple weeks ago he had a nice little game, and I want to see if Atlanta figures out a way to scheme him the ball. Like a lot of different coaches, like Shanahan is really good at I want this player to get this ball right here. I'm going to make it happen. It doesn't seem like they're doing that in Atlanta for some reason. They have him just running traditional tight end type of routes instead of flexing them out, moving them around, hand them the ball, get the ball to your best players. That's like coaching 101. So let's see if Atlanta can figure that part out. And I want to see a big game out of Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough to argue. I know we want to argue everything and anything Arthur Smith is doing so far this season. I mean, it's a pretty easy target there, but he's actually having quite a bit of success with a very talentless roster for the most part, up and down this roster. You got some high-end blue chip prospects there, but this team is really gelling together. And you look at their passing numbers, they're 30th and 32nd and all this other fun stuff near the bottom of the league when it comes to passing. And yet somehow, some way, when you look at touchdown rate and touchdown percentage and points per game, they're actually doing pretty well in comparison to the rest of the league. So, Tara, when you look at this contest right now, what is the one thing that you're pulling from it?
It's funny. I was a little bit concerned about DJ Moore, but the fact that we have PJ Walker, who's going to start again, honestly makes me a little bit less concerned for that. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing if PJ Walker can turn it around. He gets the Atlanta secondary again, and that's kind of what kicked off this fantastic start. We've got AJ Terrell that is not practicing. If he potentially misses this game again, this is going to possibly set up to literally be a repeat of a couple of weeks ago when we see a big performance from DJ Moore against the struggling Atlanta secondary, a resurgence of PJ Walker that maybe buys him a couple more weeks here. So that's really what I'm looking forward to seeing, if this Atlanta secondary is going to be hurt and injured again, and if this Carolina offense is able to go off again, including Donta Foreman.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we'll mention some of these other players' names as we go into it, because now it's time for us to talk about our starts and sits for week number 10. I know we got some Falcons in there. I know we got some Panthers in there, so we'll continue this flavor into that portion of it there, starting with Major. It looks like you're up first here at the quarterback position. Who you got starting this week?
I have PJ Walker. Tara kind of just stole my steam there. Thanks, bud.
Sorry.
Yeah. But he, like Tara said, he'll be facing the worst actually pass defense in the league. They give up 300 yards per game, and PJ has shown signs of being flashes of being a good player, but he hasn't been able to string together consecutive games of doing it. So let's see if he can get on track and take momentum from playing one of the worst defenses, build that confidence up to help him, throughout the season, see if he can win out this position for the rest of the year. So yeah, this seemed like a great week for him to have a big week. So if you're streaming right now, you're looking for some people, you got some people on a bye, I would try to look for PJ. He might be in your waiver wires.
So if you're making room for PJ Walker, if you're streaming PJ Walker, who's that quarterback that you're dropping for him? Because I'm assuming you're streaming here right now. You're kind of following that quarterback stream. So who are you getting rid of to put PJ Walker in?
So for me, I never release quarterbacks or running backs when I'm streaming. I always look for like the worst wide receiver on my team to like take off, So I kind of hold on to quarterbacks and running backs in every league,
Okay, well, that kind of backfired on me. I was kind of setting him up for his quarterback sit of the week. So, back to you, Major, for your quarterback sit for week number 10.
Me being too smart. I'm going to go with Tyler Heineke again. You can make fun. He probably wasn't on your radar anyway, but it's going to be a long week for Washington. Like, Philly is balling, man. Like, I was late to the show. I was like, oh, okay, they have 3 wins. That's cute. Okay, that 5 wins. Oh, okay. And then it's like, oh, damn, they're a real team. So, it's crazy what A.J. Brown did for, like, the confidence of that team. Or if it was a coincidence, him coming over just kind of came right on time. But to me, it feels like he did something to spark that team. But, yeah, Washington, Philly's only giving up 177 yards per game. So Tyler's not going to have any room to throw the ball. And, again, if you're looking for a streamer, keep looking. Don't just go past this one.
Quarterbacks in the stream. Tyler Heineke is out. Now, Tara, I saw you got to the show sheet before I could this week, and you kind of stole my thunder on both these. So I'm totally in agreement with you on both these players you're talking about. Who's that quarterback that you have to get in your lineup here in week number 10?
Yes, got in early, and it's finally my time to shine with the guys that I love the most. Justin Fields versus Detroit. We talked about Justin Fields a lot earlier in the show. I did manage to snag Justin Fields in one league a week or two ago, and I'm riding him 100% through his bye week. This is a fantastic matchup. Detroit has given up the second most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks heading into week 9. And obviously that'll change a little bit given the matchup that they had with Aaron Rodgers, but that's more so on Aaron Rodgers being awful versus the Detroit defense really improving. Justin Fields will be able to exploit this defense and have another fantastic game. He's been fantastic on the ground, efficient through the air. This is a great combination for him this week. My sit is going to be, I'm so sorry, Kirk Cousins. I love the dance, but the change and everything, it was a whole vibe. Appreciate that. But I do not like you this week against Buffalo, unfortunately. Now, Buffalo is dealing with injuries to their secondary, but they've been pulling through and putting it together well enough, and they've been holding up, and we could get Tre'Davious White back this week. I'm not 100% sure about Jordan Poyer's status. We'll know more, obviously, heading into the weekend, but if they get a little bit healthier, get Tre'Davious White back, it just makes them even tougher. And the Bills have been a team that you can attack on the ground, oddly enough. Michael Carter had a fairly successful game, good yards per carry, 76 yards and a touchdown. Prior week, Aaron Jones had 143 on them, absolutely insane. So this kind of reads to me as this could be a Dalvin Cook game, a tough game, close scoring match, low scoring match that's kind of fought on the ground with Dalvin Cook. And Kirk Cousins, not that I think he's going to bomb, but I think it'll just be just an average game from him, 16, 17 fantasy points, nothing special to write home about. So if you need to go with high upside, I don't think it'll be Cousins this week, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's tough because I'm falling in love with that little doofus myself. I mean, watching that airplane video and everything. I mean, how can you really hate Kirk Cousins? I mean, I get it. I mean, there's certain people who have a very punchable face, and I think Kirk Cousins may have that very punchable face, right? You just look at it, you're like, dude looks like he shops at Kohl's for his clothing. I mean, we won't even go there, but
But I love his whole team hyping him up. You like that, chanting and like cheering with him, like it was cute.
It is,
but he's had the longest career. He's had the longest career just off of that tagline. I think the only reason like Minnesota picked him up is because he had that good little tagline, and everyone likes him because he had that tagline. Like if he never said that, he would probably be out the league now.
I don't know, man. He's throwing a touchdown, man. You give him some respect. He's throwing a touchdown like 38 straight games. The next closest streak right now the next closest streak actually belongs to like Jimmy Garoppolo at like 16 games right now among active quarterbacks. So let's show Kirk Cousins and that chain gang
didn't
there around his
validate
neck a little
that stat,
respect.
Matt. That didn't help
Major.
your stat. That's two comfortable faces right there.
Come on, put some respect on Kirko Cousins, as they're calling him now.
Kirko Cousins. Like, how can
See,
you do
I'm
this
kinda-
fifth? Like, not even Matt had a little more swag with it. He was like,
It's basically, you know what it is? It's a Caddyshack dance, right? It's all right.
Matt, I just gave you love and you just ruined it, man. Damn.
Hey, me and Kirk Thuggins, we roll together. That's how we roll here.
Kirko Thuggins is the best rap name ever. Actually, I'm changing my Twitter name today.
All right.
Kirk
So for me, the starting quarterback, you know what? Sometimes we're here for a good time, not a long time. Jacoby Brissett's time in Cleveland as a starting quarterback is starting to come to an end, but not before a great matchup against the Miami Dolphins this week. Listen, I'm not saying that Brissett is Justin Fields. I'm saying that the Miami defense there is horrible when it comes to allowing fantasy points to quarterbacks this season. Like right there, bad, like with the Raiders and the Lions. That's how bad that this Dolphins defense has been. Miami has allowed 300-yard passers 4 times this season, and they have 4 defensive backs that have allowed a 100-plus passer rating this season when targeted. So basically, anywhere you target on the field, you have a 100 passer rating coming your way. That is how bad this Miami secondary has been. That's including Xavier Howard there. So Jacoby Brissett, Amari Cooper, huge week coming for you here in week 10. And for my sit, I mean, hey, it's Aaron Rodgers versus Dallas. This is not a good combination. One of the most feared pass rushers in recent memory and a quarterback with no one to throw the ball to. Cobb is still on IR. Watson's in concussion protocol. Romeo Dobbs has that high ankle sprain. Rodgers is basically, like I said, he's going through those 7 stages of grief for returning here in the 2022 campaign. We talked about that anger phase just a couple weeks ago about no one doing their job. And then last week, he's like, I'll take a little bit of accountability here because, quite frankly, I was horrible last week. So there's no reason to believe when Micah Parsons, Doris Armstrong, DeMarcus Lawrence, these guys are coming, Dante Fowler, when these guys are coming after you, this Cowboys team, they have like 33 sacks or something ridiculous in just 8 contests. So I do not like this for Aaron Rodgers. I don't like this for the Packers. I don't like this for anyone on Green Bay as far as fantasy is concerned. Now, I could talk about how I don't like it for the running backs in particular because Aaron Jones is banged up and A.J. Dillon is not going to have any room to run in the backfield because I think these defenders for the Cowboys are going to be all over him. But Major, tell me a running back that you're starting and sitting here in week number 10.
Yeah, I'm going to start Travis Etienne, and it might sound a little crazy because he's going up against the Kansas City defense that's ranked 5th against the rush and playing pretty good. But I think the Jaguars are going to like unlock the Konami code of Travis Etienne and start throwing him the ball a little bit more. So, and it kind of adds up because KC is giving their second to last and giving up 56 yards per game to running backs in the receiving game. So, look for Travis to break loose finally in the receiving part of his game.
And then what about your sit of the week?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry about that. My sit of the week is going to be Devin Singletary and anyone else who's running the ball in Buffalo besides the quarterback if he plays. But I just lost it. Let's see. Oh yeah, but he's facing one of the better rush defenses in Minnesota. That team is coming off a big win. They're all celebrating, having fun. So it looks like they're going to be coming flying around. They want to have more fun. So why not? So that defense is going to come in and try to stop Buffalo's running game, and it's going to happen because those running backs are not. I actually like Singletary. I like his running style, but for some reason it just doesn't translate weekly. So I don't know. I'm out on Devin this week.
Vikings just want to have fun. That's all they want to do is have some fun. Now, Tara, what do you got for us for your starts and sits at the running back position?
We talked about this one earlier, but my start's going to be Donta Foreman against Atlanta. Again, we're not going to see a quarterback change. I thought we were potentially going to see one, but we're not. We're getting PJ Walker again. And it's really, really tough to bench Foreman considering exactly what he did just 2 weeks ago in this same game. 100 yards, 3 touchdowns against Atlanta. Not enough has changed for me to say that this is not a guy that you absolutely want in your starting lineup. Will it be the exact same result? Probably not, but it's very possible, and I would hate to pass that up. My sit, I won't dive into it. I'll let you dive into it a little bit further, Matt, but don't play any Arizona running back. The LA Rams are an absolute mess. But one thing that they can do is they can stop the run for sure. That is one thing that you can count on them. And there's zero reason to trust a running back in Arizona. I don't care about James Conner reclaiming that spot. It's just not a good idea.
Yeah, and I'll keep filling this in with the sit here with James Conner in particular, because to be fair, like you said, I'm not starting any running backs in this contest. Cardinals, Rams, it doesn't matter. There's not a startable running back. Cam Akers, Darrell Henderson, it doesn't matter. You can talk about Eno Benjamin, Keontae Ingram, who's Kyron Williams. Like, no, stop it. You're not starting any. I don't care how desperate you're going to be. I'd rather start Kyle Juszczyk this week over any of these running backs. And that's exactly where we are. Now, Connor, you know what? To his credit here, he had a respectful PPR performance there last week against Seattle, producing 45 yards on 7 carries, adding 5 receptions for 19 yards. So he basically got 6.9 yards or points for fantasy for 19 yards. Are you kidding me? This is why I have problems with PPR, Tara. This is why. Right here, James Conner, exhibit A, B, and C. Now, we can talk about this a little bit later because it does fit some other people. When we talk later on this week about our fantasy midseason awards, PPR is going to get brought back up and how people are so good because it's PPR, even though they can't have success in regular running back kind of games. But
he wasn't going to talk about it.
That's
called
PPR,
foreshadowing.
PPR. You know, guys, we're not getting rid of PPR. If you want to do something, add in a points per first down. I'm okay with that. That helps too. I like that. I enjoy that. But we're not nixing PPR. Just add in, make these trumped up. I love those trumped up running back statistics. Yeah, all the way.
I mean, we need points per carry in there. We need points per first down. No, I'm just joking. But I do think if we're doing PPR for these running backs, I do think there's going to have to be a balance at some point where you get 0.15 per carry or some kind of a balance to kind of equal that all out a little bit later to reward running backs who are getting carries. Maybe not the production that way because, like I said, we're just watching a guy get 6.9 fantasy points for 19 yards. And I'm sure that's going to happen with the run. I mean, the touchdowns do that too. But look, this Rams team – they went into week 9. They're having the third fewest fantasy points on the back against backs this season. They went down to Tampa Bay and held Fournette to 19 yards on 9 carries. If it wasn't, again, for Fournette's 5 catches and 41 yards, it would have been a complete bust for these Tampa Bay backs last week. And for my start of the week, we're going to go to the Thursday night football game. Tara's already starting Dante Foreman. I'm going to fire up Cordero Patterson. We talked earlier on in the show about how this is a good game for fantasy running backs because neither one of these teams can stop the run. Now, look, this gives you something to watch on Thursday Night Football. Cordell Patterson tearing through this Panthers run defense. Maybe not quite like Joe Mixon did last week, where he had 200 total yards and 5 touchdowns. But Panthers, they're already allowing the 4th most fantasy points to opposing backs this season. Patterson basically came in off the IR last week, scored 2 more touchdowns on 13 carries. And Tyler Algier, if you need a little flexual healing, he's still an option this week because Patterson is not going to get 100% of the snaps. So Tyler Algier is going to have value in this contest as well. Turning our attention to the wide receiver position. Major, what do you got for us, starting and sitting?
I'm gonna go my guy Paris Campbell, one of my favorites. It's been a rough last 2 weeks for Paris, but it looks like he can possibly get back on track. You know, against Matt's Raiders there, that's giving up 158 yards per game to receivers. And Indy should play a little bit hard. Like most teams play hard after a coach gets fired. I think they play hard to kind of pay tribute to that coach type of thing. Like, hey, we're doing this for you and type of thing. So and like I said earlier in the show too, like I think Jeff Saturday really doesn't have that much pressure. He doesn't have any experience. He doesn't have anything. So like, why not just go balls to the wall, you know? That's one of the dumbest sayings too. I hate that saying. And for my sit, I'm gonna go.
Well, yeah, seriously, why are you putting those against the wall? I don't get it.
When I
It
said
makes
it, I
zero
pictured
sense,
it. I was
Major.
like, it's so stupid. But yeah, I would never do that to myself. But it's like one of those cliche things that you say in the sports world. So I said it. Let's do it. Tara, she said, yeah. So for my sit, let's go with any Tennessee receiver. It doesn't matter if it's Tannehill or Willis as starting quarterback. They're going to throw the ball a total of 10 times, whoever it is. And the Broncos secondary is like one of the tops in the league, led by Pastor Tan. And, they fly around, man. That's one of my favorite secondaries. I really enjoy watching them play. But that receiving game is kind of like the running game for the Bills. It makes no sense that you're a professional team and you can't like throw and run the ball.
I mean, if you look at what Malik Willis did last week, it was not good. I mean, it did open things up for Derrick Henry. I mean, the threat of Malik Willis pulling it down, running himself does open things up for Derrick Henry, but it doesn't do anything for Robert Woods, Nick Westbrook, Akeem. I mean, these guys are out there all together. We've seen the stat. Everyone saw it. I mean, we see the tweet by A.J. Brown basically saying none of these guys can get open, taking a little subtle shot at his former teammates there in Tennessee. Now, Tara, one player that has been getting open lately, you're going to start him this week, aren't you?
I am. Darnell Mooney. I mean, we're starting Justin Fields. Start his wide receiver one. As it, hey, Chase Claypool coming over, fantastic. Now, granted, we'll expect Chase Claypool to get a little bit more involved as he gets more familiar with the playbook. But I'm liking the role that maybe his presence is going to have on terms of the impact for Darnell Mooney. That defense is able to focus a little bit more on Chase Claypool, and it's opening things up for Darnell Mooney. Again, we talked about this being a fantastic matchup for him. So I think, Mooney continues on this role and has a high upside opportunity in this game. And then my sit of the week is going to be
You
Terry
called
McLaurin.
an audible here. You called an audible on this one because I was getting ready to take a shot at you and mine.
Well, no, because so I got into the show sheet early, and at the time we did not know who the Panthers quarterback was going to be. This was before PJ Walker was announced. So I originally had DJ Moore in here under the assumption that it could be Baker Mayfield at quarterback, because if that were the case, we know that Baker Mayfield absolutely hates his wide receiver ones, and that DJ Moore was absolutely awful with Baker Mayfield at quarterback. Luckily, we're not getting that, so we don't have to do that. So yeah, I made an audible because it was no longer pertinent to the information that we now have. So that was a fine audible to make, but I audible to Terry McLaurin. I'm not particularly passionate about this one, but again, the Philadelphia defense very tough, and Terry McLaurin is going to have an extremely difficult matchup. Probably going to be shadowed. The targets, they'll probably be there because they're going to have to throw more than likely. I don't see this defense really having a major success against Jalen Hurts, but I don't know that they'll be very productive targets, unfortunately. We'll be lucky if we get another, 10 PPR fantasy point game from him. So, hey, if you're in a deep league, obviously you got to play him. I have to in one league. But if you have the luxury of sitting him, go ahead and do it.
Have the Commanders and who was the game that Terry McLaurin had a really good game against that we didn't really see coming a few weeks back? That wasn't the Philadelphia Eagles, was it?
It was Green Bay.
He
did okay against he did not have a touchdown against Philadelphia. But again, the targets were there. He's been very consistent in terms of targets. You can expect him to get 8 or 9. It's fine. It's just in terms of if he's going to be able to break off a big run with them and be highly productive. The touchdowns haven't been there, unfortunately.
He did all right.
Terry McLaurin's. Sorry, what was that, Major?
I say he did all right against Indy.
Yeah, I know we were worried about him there against that game last time that they faced the Eagles. He had those 9 targets for 6 receptions and 102 yards. And I know for me back then, he was a sit because Darius Slay just came off the week before that where he basically shut down Justin Jefferson heading into that contest. James Bradbury, just as good of a cornerback there. So Terry McLaurin did surprise us last time in this matchup. I don't know if he's going to surprise the Eagles this week, is what I'm basically trying to say, like he did the last time. Now, for me, my start of the week is Chris Olave. We just watched him on Monday Night Football against a much improved Ravens secondary. 6 catches. I think he had 8 or 9 targets there, 61 yards. And that's with primetime Andy Dalton, which basically Andy Dalton is just primetime Kirk Cousins, except with red hair. I mean, that's literally the only difference when it comes to primetime football. You know what to expect when you get Andy Dalton or Kirk Cousins in a primetime affair. That's just how it is. Now, the Steelers, they are allowing opposing wide receivers this season to score more than 45 fantasy points per game. Olave is the number 1 wide receiver there in New Orleans. He leads all rookies in receptions and yards this season, and he's producing more than 11 plays of 15 or greater yards this season. So for me, Olave against this banged up Steelers secondary, even if they're back to 100%, I mean, Olave is still going to have that volume. We just talked about that. 9 targets there, 8 targets. You're going to get production when it's all said and done. And for me, my sit, and this one hurts because I do love Mike Evans. I really do. But this Buccaneers offense has been all kinds of out of sorts all season. Last week, Evans had 5 catches for 40 yards in what was a much favorable matchup against the Seattle Seahawks. And you know what? Against a much better, more favorable matchup than this matchup against the Seahawks. And here's the thing. Tyreek Woolen is pretty darn good when it comes to playing the cornerback position, as he basically shut down DeAndre Hopkins last week, limiting him to 4 catches there and 36 yards. So maybe Mike Evans, if Tampa Bay lines him up at tight end, he'll have some fantasy value against the Seattle Seahawks, which Tera's going to touch on here a little bit later. But, I mean, I just don't like this matchup for Mike Evans. It's not a good one there. Tyreek Woolen has been playing lights out so far this season there for the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks secondary in general has been playing pretty darn good. And this Buccaneers offense, outside of 1 drive last week, has looked like crap. Let's be honest. I mean, when Tom Brady's coming to the press conference all excited about 1 drive in 1 game, that should tell you all you need to know about how this Tampa Bay season's gone so far. Now, it's not as bad as the tight end position has been for the most part, but we do have an obligation to talk about fantasy tight ends. So, Major, kick us off at the tight end position. Give us a start and a sit.
I don't even know how to pronounce this dude's name. I just picked one.
Dolchich.
Dolchich? Yeah, that guy.
If you say anything with enough conviction, if you say any name with enough conviction and just go by like it's the truth, then people don't question it. Like, look at half the words I say, half the words that come out of my mouth.
No,
none of them are actually
actual. We don't do it in your face. We don't want to hurt your feelings, Matt. We love you. But I'm going to go with them. Tennessee's giving up the 3rd most receiving yards to tight ends and 87 yards a game. In week 8, Greg led the team in receiving yards. So we know he has that potential to be the leading. Go ahead. Tight end.
I'm sorry. It just made me laugh when you said Greg.
I'm not gonna try to get Dolchich. Like, that's not, my tongue doesn't even work that way. You know what I mean? But
oh my God, Greg.
There's a reason why Albert Ovigbottom has never made my starts and sits columns, because I can't pronounce his name half the time. So that's why he never makes it in my starts and sits.
And I picked another dude with like a name I can't pronounce, like Dalton Schultz, or maybe, yeah, let's say it. Dalton Schultz. Yeah, my tongue doesn't work for these like Germanish type names, but they will face.
Yeah, Greg is really.
No, Dolchich, that's kind of like Germany, right? Like, whatever. But let's see, Dalton, they're going to face the number 1 defense versus tight ends. They only give up 24 yards a game to tight ends, and Schultz has played well the last 2 weeks, but has not been able to find the end zone all year. So that's just a story of like the tight ends. You can ball out and still do nothing.
All right, that's fair enough. Now, Tera, I'm assuming you could pronounce both these names that you're about to read off for us this week.
I can. By the way, I love Greg. By the way, that's my boy, Greg. Grab him off waivers. He's very available on waivers. Go grab Greg. Cade Otton versus Seattle is my tight end that I am starting. Seattle's defense has been improving, good for them, but they're still very vulnerable against tight ends. Zach Ertz did score a touchdown against them that last week. So yeah, Kate Otten, he's kind of finding his way, building trust with Tom Brady. I love the connection that I'm seeing. There are a couple games where things should have gone a different way and he could have had a better stat line. And even if Cameron Brate comes back, which I don't think he's going to, but if he does, honestly, he's shown himself to have the higher upside and be the better player than Cameron Brate. So I can't imagine that they kind of reverse course and say, hey, we're going back to Cameron Brate. My sit at tight end is going to be Tyler Higbee versus Arizona. Arizona has been a good matchup all season long, but there's no way that I'm starting a man that has scored less than 5 fantasy points in the past 3 games. I don't care how good the matchup is. Nope, I'm not doing it. Sorry.
Well, luckily for you, no risk it, no biscuit. I got no problem starting Tyler Higbee this week against that Arizona Cardinals team. You just mentioned how Arizona has been very vulnerable to the tight end position all season. I mean, one rule when it comes to Fantasy Fight Club here is you start your tight ends against Seattle. You start your tight ends against Las Vegas. You start your tight ends against the Arizona Cardinals. Them's are the rules of streaming tight ends in fantasy football. The only team worse than Seattle this season at defending the tight end position has been the Cardinals. Earlier this season, Higbee, maybe this is a get-right game for Tyler Higbee. He averaged 15.3 yards per reception on his way to 61 yards against his Cardinals team back, I think it was like week 3 or week 4. Don't fact-check me on that. Expect another double-digit fantasy week once again, courtesy of Tyler Higbee against this Cardinals defense. And, of course, my sit of the week, I got to turn my attention to Pittsburgh Steelers tight end Pat Freiermuth. I mean, I'm not in on this team. I mean, the Saints, I know we just watched Isaiah Likely score a touchdown there, but he only had like 24 yards here on Monday Night Football against the Saints defense. The Saints have been tough on opposing tight ends all season long. And when you look at it, heading into this week's Monday Night Football game, they've only allowed 6.93 fantasy points per contest. Maybe the deal that sent Chase Claypool to the Chicago Bears will open things up for Pat Freiermuth here this week, or maybe it's in the future. But I'm banking on this being more of a benefit to George Pickens moving forward more than anybody else. So with that all being said, this has been another episode of the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast, episode 154, presented to you as always by the Fantasy Points Media Group. Check out Major Caldwell every Sunday over on fantasypoints.com there. Him and Nick Script doing their Sunday thing. Catch Tera Roberts just about everywhere and anywhere on YouTube, on TikTok, Fantasy Pros, Fantasy Alarm, you name it, that's where she's at. And make sure you're tuning in on the Vipers Network here on YouTube, where you can catch our primetime previews, as well as over on the Fantasy Points YouTube channel there, where you can catch my Friday Night Hype Show coming at you. Guess what? Every Friday night. With that being said, we will see you all next week.